Hello, everyone. My name is Lauren, and it is my pleasure to be joined by and sit down and have a few moments with Quonzar, the intellectual, the sophisticated gentleman of Team Numerics. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
Absolutely not.
How are you
Very
doing today,
flattering.
sir?
I'm doing all right. How about yourself?
I'm doing great, man. I always enjoy any instance we get to sit down and chat. Um,
Likewise.
Thanks. For those who don't know, you want to take a moment or two to just give an introduction to who you are, talk about Team Numerics, give us a little insight and background to your team.
I'm a player for Team Numerics. We've participated in all but one of the Heroes Hypes. We had to cancel the last one because we had scrims. But we have been doing pretty well. We made the finals in the first four. Um, we got top four in HGC Open. We lost to Donkeys 2-0 in the losers bracket finals. Um, what else did you ask us for? For just the
Just a little
background.
bit, yeah, just a little background on who you guys are.
I got asked to join the team about a month and a half ago, just kind of out of the blue. I didn't really know any of the guys up until the point, like obviously I'd seen them a little bit on ladder,
Mm-hmm.
um, but I wasn't super familiar with any of them. And I recently just found out actually why I got invited. Their fifth dropped for one of the HEC Opens, and they're like, we need a fifth really badly.
Mm-hmm.
And Caesar was apparently the talent scout, and he just was watching streams, and he just saw a clip where I was Ariel and I dodged a Ring of Frost, but then I died immediately, and I was horribly out of position beforehand. But he didn't see that part, so he was just like, "Oh, this guy must be all right." Little did he know though that I fed that game like the whole time. But the one clip he did see was a mediocre play, and he just went, good enough. Uh, and ever since then, it's been uh, the rest is history. Because I was the fifth one to join too. They were sort of already a group of players, and
Mm-hmm.
I just sort of walked into the team. But we got along immediately. Like it was pretty crazy. I didn't know what to expect, but as soon as I sort of joined the team, there was sort of a chemistry, and I mean, I think we all just really enjoy playing together and we enjoy spending time together. And I think that's sort of why, for such a short amount of time, we were able to perform as well as we did. Obviously, we were a little disappointed with how we did in HEC Open, but in HeroesHype, we've been doing as good as we can hope. We've dropped a couple of series that we would have liked to have won, but it's just going to happen some nights. But yeah, we just get along well and we enjoy spending time together, and I think that's a huge sort of component to our success so far.
I gotta agree, man. I mean, but between the whole secret about how you joined the team, the clip they saw you, secret safe for this, Quanzar. Don't worry. But I
Thanks.
feel like Team Numerics is extremely lucky. I was actually thinking back in advance of our interview. After Heroes of the Dorm this year, I wrote, just like a blog post about my personal thoughts on it. And you particularly were one of the standout players of the entire tournament. I was always impressed with how you conducted yourself in interviews and things like that. And I always knew you had potential for greatness. So when I found out that you were on Team Numerics, I was already excited because I was like, all right, cool. I'm really glad to see this player's evolution, and I don't think you've disappointed at all. I was really happy to see that you guys made top four. I think you surprised a lot of people that were watching the HCC Open Division, um, particularly the Dragonshire game against Heroes Heart.
Yeah.
I think that game showed you guys' potential because you guys run interesting compositions. You guys like to run a lot of stitches, things like that. And while there doesn't always seem to be like immediate chemistry between the composition, just how comfortable you guys are playing together accentuate and highlight all the strengths of heroes and turn it into a very unique synergy. Is that something that you guys specifically shoot for?
It's actually funny they bring that up because the series against Heroes Hearth, where we lost 1-2, we were pretty happy to take a game because we had dropped every single map before then, and we took that, and then we beat Donkeys to place best of. So we finished top three in the final cup, so we are feeling good. Um, but ever since then, we sort of have been struggling a lot, and I think a lot of it comes down to our drafts. We do draft sort of these sort of just almost seemingly random assortment of heroes that we made work in the past really well.
Hmm.
Um, but we got to a point where we were just facing people who sort of forced us to reconsider why we were doing that. A lot of the times we were drafting, we were putting a heavy um, preference on heroes where a lot of other teams weren't, and we were making it work because we just had sort of played it enough that we understood how the composition worked, and we knew the strengths and the weaknesses, and we tried to play to them as best as possible. But it came to a point where we were sort of doubting ourselves a little bit, because you were not the only person to notice the sort of oddities of our drafts. We were very aware of that at the time too, and a lot of it works for us. Like I think the Cho'Gall ban against us in every single game we played in the HGC Open, it allowed us to sort of get, whenever we did get it, we were able to run it pretty successfully, and we felt comfortable with it. Whenever it was taken away from us, we could sort of use that as an advantage in draft. We could go, okay, well, if they're prioritizing a Cho'Gall ban, then that means that they aren't banning some other high priority heroes, and we can try and sort of tailor our draft and our draft preparations towards that. But we almost had a bit of a, I wouldn't say identity crisis because that seems a little dramatic, but we sort of we the question that a lot of people when they watch our drafts they have is like, what composition are they running? We started asking ourselves that too, and it came down to just a lot of reevaluation, and I think we're still currently in the refiguring it out. Obviously there are some picks that we do still like, Stitches, Cho'Gall. There are some picks that still really work for us,
Hmm.
but there's the meta has just shifted more and more, at least on the amateur scene, towards just a high priority on double support. And that's not. I'm not gonna say we don't like double support, but it doesn't seem like we excel at it as well as other teams. So um, yeah, we're kind of just like still sifting through drafts and trying to figure out, what we do like, what we don't like, but we're not limiting ourselves to, well, the meta says you have to do this. We're still considering all of our options regardless of whether it's meta, whether people think it's good. I think we could care less about what people, or we couldn't care less about what people think is meta, but it's just what works for us. Like that's really the question we're trying to answer currently.
I really like that mindset a lot. We don't care about what other people think. We're trying to find out what works for us particularly, and I think in a lot of ways that's your biggest strength. I can see how it's something of a double-edged sword. You guys are something I would consider you guys to be innovators, going with compositions that, like you said, aren't exactly the norm, aren't exactly meta or what's expected. And that has a lot of strengths because you can take opponents off guard, or you can make non-meta heroes like Cho'Gall so much of a threat. It affords you stronger options that normally get banned out in that first rotation. That's huge in drafts. But it can leave you in positions where you do have something of an identity crisis. It's like we play these non-standard things. We're kind of out on an island on a high wire in a lot of ways. When it succeeds, it feels great, but if you run into any struggles, what's the second option? What's the alternative?
Mhm.
Um, I think it's been really interesting to see that overall development and growth for you guys. But with regards to the meta and the overall amateur scene, like we said, you were a part of a strong team in Heroes of the Dorm this year. I think there's been a huge shift in overall competitive quality going from phase one of Open Division, HeroesHype Tempo Storm Series 2 into phase two of Open Division in this current run of HeroesHype Tempo Storm Series. Um, how have you noticed an increase in overall competitive play, or have you?
I think there's definitely been an increase, but I think it's concentrated a lot at the top. And I think that's just a sort of symptom of, or sort of a quality of not only of just like all tiers of competitive play. I feel like with the North American, like the open scene, the amateur scene, there are, you know, five or six just really strong teams. At any night, any of them can take a game off any others, and then it falls off a bit. So and I think the gap between, the top HGC players and the amateur scene is another just steep divide. So I think there's just these rungs um, of sort of not skill, but competitiveness. Where if you're below it, it's hard to compete with the people above it, and it's sometimes unclear as to like what separates the different rungs, or like what makes a team better than another, because there's just a lot to it. But I do notice that there are a lot more of those teams sort of present. Before in the first series, even half a year ago, it felt like it was just a mess top to bottom. Like all amateur teams are sort of going, I don't really know what I'm doing or what I'm supposed to be doing. But now you have a lot more firm of a grasp, because as more and more professional plays sort of develop, like more and more people are studying it. So you have this sort of open pool of knowledge that everyone can access, that everyone is studying from, and that's a great resource. But the problem is it takes a lot of effort, and it takes a lot of work, and it's a bit grueling. Like if you ever watch a professional game, not for fun but for comprehension, uh, it can take an hour and a half to get through a single game, just to go through all of the decisions. And that's sort of what teams are doing, though. Teams are analyzing play just to make sure they understand what's happening. And I think as time goes on, you'll start to, or the hope is that more and more teams develop. I think Europe has an amazing amateur scene where the top teams are very easily HEC teams. Leftovers this season, they're looking fantastic, and this interview is happening before the Crucible, but they're looking poised to take it. Whereas in the North American scene, we're getting there. It's a slow process. You have the imported supports, the Donkeys R Us. Obviously the Heroes Hearth, I think, is a bit of the exception, because they're sort of an amalgam of all ex-professional players. Like I think they're the exception, but all the other teams are striving towards that point and are getting closer and closer. Um, I would like to think that we're getting to the point where you can throw our names in. The Six Senses, the Animals, there are a lot of teams where they're sort of getting to that point. And I wouldn't say that the scene is there where we're all, at the point where we compete with, the best of the best, but you are seeing a lot more teams approaching that point. And I think that's a really good sign for the scene. And I think if it continues in this sort of direction, I think the only place it can go is up.
Mhm.
I think a strong amateur scene is important for the health of all heroes, though, because you need those people nibbling at the heels of the pros to keep them honest. If there's no incentive to if there's no threat of you falling out of HGC, I think the bottom teams are less incentivized. But if you
Mhm.
if you have these teams like Heroes Hearth and Imported Support, two fantastic teams who are capable of sort of dethroning them if they falter too much or if they slack a little too much, then I think the whole scene grows as a result. And I think yeah, we just have more teams than before who are sort of bridging that gap.
I would definitely have to agree. HCC Open Division is obviously important for the amateur scene. It's the on ramp towards professional play. The Crucible, which is coming up this weekend, is going to be a spectacle for everyone from top to bottom. But I also feel like things like HeroesHype, Tempo Storm series are very important and integral to the development of an amateur team. Though people may not know that imported support, they definitely have played their fair share of HeroesHype Tempo Storm series. We've been lucky enough to have two Numerics show up as well and prove their stuff, so to speak. Would you agree that efforts like HeroesHype and the partnership with Temple Storm has been helpful for the amateur scene to develop its level of play, to have that exhibition level? We can scrim and try these different things
Mm-hmm.
out, but this is an actual competitive venue. Has that helped you guys in particular grow?
I don't think it can be stated enough sort of how important tournaments like Heroes Hype are for the scene, because it's a realistic, achievable goal that gives you more opportunity to play in a tournament setting. Like scrims are fantastic, team league, whatever, all that is good and all that is necessary. But until you feel the pressure of, if I lose this game, I'm out of a tournament, like you just don't know how you're going to perform. And having the opportunity to play in more of those, um, it can't be sort of described how important that is. So tournaments like Heroes Hype, I think, are one of the driving forces, if not the driving force, as to why the amateur scene is getting better, because you have this sort of, it's one thing to say like HEC is fantastic, um, but to it's really hard to go like, here's HEC, now qualify for it. Like you need those sort of tournaments like Heroes Hearth to go, here's a tournament that the stakes are still high enough to where you will get good practice. You will get teams who are giving you their all, but it's not the sort of insurmountable, daunting task of, okay, play with professional gamers now. You have the people who are all working towards that goal, so you're sort of in that same pool, but you don't have this sort of um, impossibility. And I think the achievableness of a goal directly correlates to how much you're willing to work towards it. So if I tell you you have to beat Michael Phelps in a race, in a swimming competition, you won't. And I say, if you do, I'll give you $1,000. You won't do it because you never will. But if I say, if you beat the best person in your city in a race in swimming, you might do that, and then that will lead you going, oh, I'm actually like kind of getting good at this. Like maybe I should pursue even more. So I think those stepping stones, those sort of almost checkpoints, are what make people drawn to the scene. They draw more and more competition, and that's better for everyone. The more people you have competing, the more talent you have out there, only elevates everyone else. So something like Heroes Hearth, with Heroes Hearth Tempo Storm series is I don't think it can be stated enough how much we appreciate the tournament as competitors, and how much we appreciate it as just people who enjoy the North American amateur scene and who want to see it grow.
I really appreciate that, man. I think that's going to put a huge smile on the face on all the people that work behind the scenes at HeroesHype Tempo Storm series, because this is very much an effort and project of passion. I can only speak for myself, but I'm sure that a lot of folks on the staff would agree that we do love the North American amateur scene. We want to see it grow. And if we can help a promising team, individual like yourself, a team like Team Numerics, sharpen their skills and prepare for that professional stage, that world level stage, I feel like we've done our job. So I'm really glad you feel that way. Going into the finals, the first 2 weeks of HeroesHype Tempo Storm Series 3 were very exciting for me, because the matchup between your team and the Animals was, in my opinion, some of the most intense competitive amateur action we've been able to have at HeroesHype Tempo Storm Series. Now, I know that the Animals have had a couple of roster changes going into the finals, but do you feel like they in particular are a team to watch out for going into the finals, or are there other teams that you have also taken notice of?
I mean, there's definitely always sort of, for us, we're always aware of Animals, because they're a team who, on their best night, they can take a game off of almost anyone in the amateur scene. The Ebros have amazing strategy. They've been doing this for longer than I maybe have been alive. So I might be older than Toby, but still, they've been doing it that long. So I think you stick the Ebros on any team, and that's a team you have to be aware of. Mm-hmm. We do feel like we've been able to get the better of them the last couple of times, but we know that can shift in a moment. So if we're playing them, we're taking it as seriously as possible. We're playing any series, we're taking it as seriously as possible, but them in particular, we sort of have laser focus set for. Sixth Sense as well. I mean, they did well in the Copa America, the Latin America HEC. They took the series off of Red Canids, right? And then Red Canids was actually able to eke out the win when they came back up through the losers bracket. But performance like that you have to take note of that. They took the series off us when they played us in the finals, so they're definitely a team we're sort of we're looking out for. I mean, all the teams in the top 8. Like once you get to these sort of, in the weekly tournaments, you get 1 or 2 rounds that may or may not be super competitive just based on seeding and who enters that night. But the later rounds are always really good. But this tournament is from the get-go. We're going to be every team we're playing, we're going to be sort of looking out for. We're going to probably do a little bit of just like, okay, who are these guys? What do they like to do beforehand? So I mean, the usual suspects are there, and we know about them, and we're taking them seriously. But everyone is sort of on our radar in terms of when the top 8 is going.
Cool, man. Well, I definitely think you guys are going to do well. Consistency has definitely been a hallmark of Team Numerics. Anytime we've gotten a chance to see you guys in action, you always play at a high level. So I'm really excited to see how you fare in the finals. Any shout outs or things you want to say to those who don't necessarily have a team yet to root for? Like, is there anything you want to say to them to say, like, hey, when Quonzar loads on that map, hey.
I mean, I don't know how you don't cheer for a team that has picked Abathur Cho'Gall. Like, how is that just not a fan favorite immediately? I will say, yeah, we're trying our best. We're not a team that's sort of, all of us are pretty new to the competitive scene, so we're just trying to figure it out as we go along, and we hope that we give entertaining games, and we hope that you enjoy watching us play as much as we enjoy playing it. At the end of the day, we're just 5 people who love Heroes of the Storm and who enjoy each other's company. So, I mean, we're having fun sort of regardless, but the more people who are enjoying it as well, the more the merrier. As far as shout outs go to individuals, I still have to give a shout out to obviously all of my teammates, everyone at Heroes Hearth Tempo Storm. I think all of you all are doing a far better job than I can even comprehend. I know you all are doing things that I don't even know what's happening, but I know you all are doing it well. And then just shout out to I guess I have to shout out to Fats, our coach, who's been with us for a little over a month now. Basically almost as long as the team has been a thing, he's been helping us out. And you know, he's in scrims, he's always there. He's giving insight, and it seems like a pretty thankless job just to be the person in the game watching but not ever actually playing. I don't know how he does it, because I would get the itch to play immediately watching that many games. I would just be like, all right, put me in, coach, I'm ready to go. So thank you to him, thank you to the casters, and thank you to everyone. Thank you to the viewers as well, because without people who are passionate about Heroes of the Storm, I don't think any of this would matter. So yeah, just shout out to everyone, and if I missed someone in particular, I'm sorry. I'm not particularly great at this.
No, man, you've done a great job. Thanks for taking the time, man.